It is 6 o'clock. This is a meeting of the Finance Committee. My name is Todd Sievert. I am chairman of the Finance Committee. To my right is Mrs. Westphal. To my left is Mr. Schilling. Council members present today are Mr. Phillips. I also noticed the law director, Mr. Kerber, is in the audience. And as always, we have our esteemed Sue Knight. We will begin this meeting. I believe Mr. Davis is going to be the presenter, and I think there's some questions that a number of us have before we begin the presentation. So if you want to come on up to the dais, Mr. Davis, I think I'll commence this that there's been a significant amount of confusion relative to the background portion of our memorandum. And I think that it is important that the public as well as the community present get an actual and factual representation as to what is occurring with regards to this property. And so I have asked that you, Mr. Davis, come a little to the dais before you go into your explanation and kind of give us an update as to what's happening. So the first question that I have is, in the background, it indicates that the property has fallen into disrepair. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Certainly. So this property has been a troublesome property for us, property maintenance-wise. For the past 5-7 years, we've actually gone through 5 different zoning inspectors when I looked up our cases against the property, and the first one was in 2017, which is as far back as our iWork software system goes. So with that, we've actually been in court in 2023, 2024, and of course this year in 2025. All the court documentations we're essentially citing them in the court because of property maintenance violations that were not corrected.
And has the property been condemned?
It has been declared a public nuisance at this point, so it is condemned as a public nuisance. Okay.
And with regards to the civil, or were those criminal actions or civil actions?
So those were criminal actions. They went through the courts and they were active. They actually received active warrants were issued on all 3 of those. So we had 3 active warrants. And then this year, September 3rd, we issued another order trying the civil penalty route. And that, I think, is what caught the attention of the property owner. The property owner, so you know, is a resident of California, is an absentee property owner that we currently have. When he received the order for civil penalties versus criminal penalties, he contacted us, asked us what he had to do to comply with the orders. During that conversation, he talked about, could I just sell the property? And we said, you certainly could. And then that kind of led us to where we're at now. So the discussion of selling the property, he quoted us a price that he wanted. We said, well, we'll have to get back with you. And then when I got back with him, he said, if the city is not buying at this price or doesn't purchase it, then I'm going to list it for sale to the public at a higher price. And so we were kind of jumping on it. It's kind of why we're at where we are now is because we're getting it at a discounted price versus what he'll put it up for should council decide to pass.
So what then is the intention of the city for, I guess, let me rephrase that question. Why would it be in the best interest of the city for us to buy it?
Well, first of all, we've been unsuccessful with the property maintenance route. So we've had this property for at least 8 years now, 3 court actions. It hasn't gotten resolved. The civil actions will just be a monetary fine where it doesn't actually let us go in and fix the property. So it will continue to be a public nuisance as it currently is today. Furthermore, it gives us control of the property. So if the city decides to enter an agreement with the CIC could redevelop the property, whether it be, it mentions in the report, whether it's demolition, whether it's keeping the property as is and having it rehabbed by a private property owner who comes forward. Any of those options are available. But the goal is to get it out of the hands of the absentee landlord and into local control with the CIC.
Well, let me direct your attention to that last part a little bit. With regards to the utilization post-purchase, there in our background, it indicates to convert it to green space. I can't speak for everybody. I can tell you as chairman of this committee that I would consider that a absolute last resort, if at all resort. What steps would be taken to assure that the building is rehabilitated, maintained, or that the best use of that property is secured if the city does purchase it?
Sorry, I'm waiting on a delay for the cameras, for those viewing at home. Essentially, what we could do is with the CIC, I mean, again, there could be conditions on that with the CIC when they sell the property, when we market it. If the best use is a rehabilitation, that could be pursued. If it's part of a bigger plan by developers, that can be also discussed. So the CIC gives a lot of flexibility in how they can sell it and who they can sell it to. If you put it on the open market, of course, then whoever purchases it can come forward with their plan, and we have to go through their process. In addition, if the CIC decided to demo the property, it would have to go through the Planning Commission and adhere to all the rules and regulations the city has in place for any demolition in the historic district.
Has there been any actual engineering secured for that building? Do you know if that's if anyone's looked at that as far as the integrity of the structure?
So that has not been completed. We did ask Rob England to look at it. If you look at the building, the foundation is leaning. It's definitely sloping, and it was his recommendation that a structural analysis be completed. And we felt that at this point in time, when Mr. Olympic contacted us about selling, if it would go forward, that may be done as well. So we wouldn't do it without control of the property.
And just to clarify, the onus of this was the property owner reached out to us to satisfy litigation that was existing, and the mechanism that he wished to use to satisfy those pending litigations was to basically sell the house at a what he perceived at a reasonable level that would be cheaper than what an open market, fair market sale would be.
That is correct. I think he looked up, and I actually have it here. If you look at what Miami County has the property valued for, they had it in 2022. The valuation was $121,700, and then the 2025 preliminary valuation listed at $166,000. So the 125 would be a discounted rate of what the county is saying it is valued at.
And that's the purchase price is $125.
That's what we're asking for, up to 125. Yes.
So do we have a contract with them for a price?
We have a contract that he has signed. Of course, it's not in effect because the city or the CIC has not signed it. Of course, it would be a result of the future.
And what is that purchase price?
That is 123.
Okay, so sub 125.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay. I guess one more question that I would have, and so there's been no determination, and that was premature to put that in there with regards to use.
That's correct. I believe the intent was to show what could happen, potentially different options. Of course, there's really only so many options you can do, demolition or rehabilitation. So I think it was prematurely put in the packet. Yes.
Okay. And we couldn't pave over it because we have a prohibition against paving lot in downtown right now, currently, correct?
I don't know if we have a prohibition against paving lots in downtown, but it would have to go through the Planning Commission and get approval.
We can't do parking lots, so we could pave it, but it couldn't be parking, correct?
It could be parking. I don't know what rules we have that would prevent that at this point in time, but again, that would have to go through the Planning Commission.
I thought we put a moratorium against parking lots in downtown, but I don't know.
We did not.
We did for a while, but it's gone.
We did, but it's gone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not in effect currently.
Okay, but we did. Before I relinquish questions, I have a question for the law director, if he's available.
Good evening, Grant Kerber.
Thank you, Mr. Kerber. Just briefly, the transaction that was described by Mr. Davis previously where this offer has been made in order to satisfy legal proceedings that have done by the city. Are you comfortable with that as a resolution? Is that something that you think is appropriate and in the city's best interest?
Well, I mean, the contract we put together, we made it contingent upon ratification by the CIC, but we do have a commitment from the seller to sell it at that price. So that is all buttoned up if that's what council is willing to fund that.
But that would also solve us from having 3 outstanding warrants and potential civil judgments and future litigation. And so it was there was a balance on both sides of this. We get something at a reduced price. He gets relieved of any civil or criminal liability.
And actually that conversation never came up, but where it's certainly not in the contract that we would drop any of the cases against them or not. It would seem to make sense to do that if he sells the property, but we generally don't condition dropping like either criminal cases or the civil, but if he's willing to sell it so it can be rehabilitated, I'm sure that's how I would look at it.
Okay. And you participated in that process that Mr. Davis just explained?
Yes, yes.
And you think it's in the best interest of the city?
Well, ultimately, that's your decision on that.
I understand,
Yeah,
but legally,
legally,
there's no issues with us buying it at a sub-value or anything like that.
No, you're right.
It's an arm's length transaction with consideration on both sides.
Yes.
I have a question, Mr. Kerber.
Yeah. Mr. Schilling?
Mr. Kerber, can we, as city council, put restrictions on the CIC as to what can happen to the property? In other words, that, I think there's some steps that probably should be taken before any decisions are made. And I think can we apply restrictions to the CIC in authorizing this sale?
We can enter into an agreement with the CIC now.
We don't have an agreement yet.
No, the agreement here is my understanding that there would be the funds that would be advanced to allow the purchase. There would be a note signed where the CIC would be obligated to reimburse the city at some point, on demand.
But we could add to this saying what certain restrictions that should be in place in the review of this property. I mean, there's some things that I think we should. We can add those things. I guess the question is, can we do that? Is all I need to know.
Well, you can, so long as the CIC is agreeable with that. If we're in agreement, you need both sides to agree upon it.
Right.
So it wouldn't be a unilaterally imposition because the CIC would say, well, we don't want to do it upon those conditions. So there'd have to be some sort of discussion about that.
Okay.
Yeah, but there certainly could be a certain sort of development agreement or things along those lines, but obviously that would require some further discussion or conversation.
Ms. Westphal, since Mr. Kerber's here, do you have any questions?
I don't have questions for you. I have questions for Tim.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Kerber. Mr. Davis, if you'd like to come back to the dais.
My questions are, one, what were the violations, and is there any fines associated with the violations?
So violations, they range from peeling paint, areas of, it says chipping, peeling, missing paint. We have deterioration around wood around some of the windows that would need to be repaired. There's deteriorating wood frames, foundations on the north side of the building that are leaning. There's cracks and openings throughout the entire foundation that needs to be addressed. We have other things such as damaged and loose gutters, downspouts, things of that nature. That is what was in the latest order that was sent on September 3rd.
Okay. Are there fines associated with that?
So no, well, there would be if we took civil action. I think it's $150 a day is what we could do. The court cases in 2023, 2024, and 2025, when they issued the warrant, that's kind of the end result. They did have to pay court costs, I think, of $120, I believe, for each of those filings.
Okay, so there have been some fines paid, and were the repairs made back in 2023?
No, the repairs were not made.
So no repairs have ever been made?
Some repairs have been made, not all the repairs. For example, I think there was some broken boards on the deck and a spindle that was repaired. They didn't just complete all the repairs. They may have done one or two of the repairs, but not all of them.
Okay. And is this a duplex, or what is this currently?
Yeah, it is. I believe it is a duplex. They have several apartments. It may be 3 that are in there. I think currently 2 are vacant.
There's 3 apartments in there.
Yeah, I think currently 2 are vacant. Right now there's just 1, which we did put a condition on the agreement that the CIC sent that said it had to be vacant by the time it was purchased. So.
Okay. And the reasoning for not putting it on the market is control?
For us, it's control. That way you can get the best use. You can use the CIC, which is the economic development arm of the city. That way you can get the best use for that property. Otherwise, it goes to the open market.
What do you consider the best use?
It kind of depends on what comes. So for us, is it fixing it up and putting an office use in or retail on the first floor? If somebody may come in and fix up the apartments and put apartments on the second floor, could be done. It could be a multitude of uses. If a developer comes in and wants to package it with other properties or things of that nature, I mean, there's all sorts of ways it can be developed.
Okay, but I think the open market could do the same thing, correct?
It might do the same thing. Depends who buys it and what their use is for. So. Okay.
Has anybody looked into the cost of rehabbing it?
We have not looked into that. We don't have control of it at this point. We've not been on the inside either. We don't have access to the inside. We wouldn't have that until it was purchased.
And the CIC may say it's not worth rehabbing? I mean, who determines whether it gets torn down?
If it gets torn down, that would have to go through the Planning Commission and meet the criteria of the zoning code that sets forth demolitions in the historic district. So there are certain criteria that any building in the historic district would have to meet before it could be torn down. It would fall within that as well. So it would be it'd come before the Planning Commission.
The CIC would bring that to the Planning Commission?
That's correct.
If CIC gets control of the building, then they can determine whether or not they want to, the best use would be to tear it down and start fresh, or to rehab it. That would be CIC's decision?
That would be
unless there'd be some type of restriction placed on it by council?
Yeah, that would be their decision. Again, they would have to follow the rules and regulations set forth for just like any demolition would in the historic district.
So you can't tear it down unless you have an end use for it?
Can't tear it down unless you have permission, a COA from the Planning Commission. Mm-hmm. Which means
you have to have an end use?
Yeah, which includes all the criteria set forth in the code.
Okay. And does it have any historic value?
Historic value, when we looked at the OHI form, it talked about it being built in the late 1800s. It talked about a lot of alterations to the building. Some of the improvements are not original. It talked about the windows being removed. It did talk about an interesting roof gable on there, but that would be a decision. A roof line gable, it says. So, but that would be up to the Planning Commission to make that determination whether they feel that it's historic or not, if it got to that route.
Just to clarify, so just because there is some confusion often with this process, the CIC, explain what the acronym CIC means, Mr. Davis.
So the CIC is a Community Improvement Corporation. It's essentially, as I stated, it's an economic development arm of the city where you can control things and hold values. You can utilize it for economic development purposes. So we talked about using the best use or finding the best use, whether we commission somebody to come in and say, what's the best use of this property? It's very similar to what kind of happened at, if you will, we used the TDC for the Hobart site, right, on West Main where Kettering Health Network is now. The TDC held that property. They did a study to see what was the best use, and ultimately we landed with Kettering Health Network. The CIC has very similar powers to the TDC, where it's an organization that has individuals that are from council, appointed by the mayor, the safety and service director, the planning director are on it, and what it can do is it can utilize economic development processes to basically get your favorable outcome. And it has a little different things. It can do things in a speedier fashion than City Council because Council has given the approval for the CIC to move forward, acting on their behalf.
And the CIC is, well, their member, I serve on it because I'm chairman of the Finance Committee, but the CIC is made up of more than just city people, correct? Do you have a list of who's on the CIC?
Yeah, it's on our website. There's 13 members of the CIC, so on the CIC, trying to go off of my head, there's several bankers on the CIC. There's, I think, 3 members from council. I think Mr. Sievert, Mr. Phillips is on there. President Council Roselle is on there as well. And then there's, I think, 6 or 7 at-large members of the community that have been appointed by either the mayor or previous mayors.
And so it's not it's an ad hoc committee, but it's people who aren't necessarily associated with the city that are going to make these decisions. The vast majority of members of the committee are not elected city council people.
That is correct, yes.
And the only issue then before us today is the CIC, from your background, the CIC received some monies from a prior transaction. We have monies that are available. The purpose of the CIC is to utilize those monies for economic advancements, economic development, those types of issues. And in the minds of the city, or in the minds of, when we say the city, sometimes there's a distinction between the elected officials in the city and the city representatives. In the minds of the city representatives, a good use of that money right now would be to have the CIC borrow money from the city to purchase this building for future redevelopment. And there is, to Jeff's point, there is no ultimate goal, nobody's being non-transparent, that we're just going to turn right around and tear this down. There's a body of 13 people that are going to have control of this, that is going to have to dictate if that's even a possibility. So in reality, that should not even have been in the background.
That's correct, yes.
A minor property to be investing money in, especially if it needs a lot of work, it seems smarter to put it out there and let somebody else buy it and rehab it and turn it into an office space, mixed-use space, or whatever. I mean, I see the Hobart building. That's a big deal. This is a smaller property in a place where maybe somebody would want to live. You know, we're looking for downtown properties. I know people I know that are still looking for properties walkable to the downtown. And maybe the CIC is looking at that, but who's going to rehab it? Explain that to me.
Who's going to rehab it?
Yes, if the CIC gets it.
If the CIC decides that it's in the best interest to rehab it, they could, as the owner of the property, go in and make any repairs they wish in order to lure or entice a different end user, or a user that maybe they have identified or partnered with to come in and utilize that property for that use. So it could be done on the private side. I mean, there's multiple different ways how it could be rehabbed, whether it's tenant improvements, so it may not be the CIC doing it, but whoever moves into that building could make those tenant improvements as well. So it's hard to, there's so many different outcomes that how it could be developed. It's hard to answer one specific one, but there's multiple ways. So
the CIC would rent it to someone? They would keep it as a landlord?
They could do that. They could make, they could put an option on the, or they could put a condition on the sale that they have to fix up and do X, Y, and Z. It's just, there's just different ways. They don't have to own it and maintain it. They could sell it to somebody else with a condition that they're going to do X, Y, and Z and fixing it up and using it for something. I mean, there's just a lot of different ways it could be developed.
I agree. I think we should sell it. Okay.
Mr. Phillips, or I'm sorry, Mr. Sung, did you have something more?
Not right now.
Okay. I do note that Mr. Wooden has joined us. I can't see in the back, but Mr. Phillips, do you have anything?
Just a clarification, in reading the document that we all got as to the meeting or the staff report, the CIC meeting is going to be apparently sometime in November, which if the tentative date that you've thrown out, Mr. Davis, is I won't be able to be there. I'll be out of state, but that's neither here nor there. But all of the questions that I had, you have addressed, and Mr. Davis has addressed. So I have nothing else at the moment.
And if the CIC, to clarify, if the CIC gets this and they know it needs a lot of repairs, where does that money come from? Like, where are they going to get that money?
The CIC has funds that they have as well that they could utilize should they choose to do that.
But they need 100 and some from the city to purchase this?
Well, so the way that is structured, it was they actually have money from the city from the previous sale of the Experiment Farm Road. I think it mentioned it was like Resolution R-72/2020, where funds were given for that, and the CIC is holding those funds. And so those funds, 125 of those funds would be utilized to purchase the property. The CIC, of course, has its own account that they have money in that's separate from the city of Troy, so they could use those funds, or...
Is it sufficient to be able to rehab this property?
I don't have those numbers, so I don't know what that cost would be.
Okay.
And since there are no bids on it, nobody knows, so nobody's been in it.
And the CIC wouldn't have to open it up for bids, right? The CIC could sell it directly, which is how we could control it, so it's not to a out-of-state landlord again that would continue to, and subsequent councils have disrepair issues.
That's correct.
So the benefit of us, of the CIC, I almost got confused myself, the benefit of the CIC purchasing it would be you'll get it at a reduced rate, so even if you rehabilitated it and turned it around to market it, there would be a greater margin for, or I was going to say for repairs. There would... For any subsequent purchaser, there'd be a greater market for repairs if you could buy it from you for that lesser amount. So, okay, Mr. Whitten, do you have any questions? Anybody in the audience have questions? Mr. Southerly, come on up.
Comments and questions.
What's that?
Comments and questions.
Sure. Go ahead, sir. State your name.
Sure. Ben Southerly, Troy Historic Preservation Alliance, 5474 East State Route 41, Troy. So I appreciate the questions that I've heard up here tonight. Like you, had reviewed the report to your committee, and I have concerns. I think while you are correct that the council is only authorizing the potential for the CIC to potentially take ownership of this property and resolve the court case, which is certainly a noble intent and so forth, I do think the administration has tipped its hand a little bit as to where its energies would be focused, and the energies would not be focused on rehabbing this property, which concerns me significantly. I do think a potential outcome, if the CIC were to get this property, would be to spend tens of thousands of dollars to demolish this property, and you could ultimately end up with a grass lot that the city, that about $200,000 of public money has been invested in, with no guarantee that the property would be redeveloped. And I don't think that's I think that's a very plausible scenario when I look around our downtown and I see there are a lot of vacant areas. I do think our city needs to model a culture of stewardship. So when the first crack out of the gate demolition is being contemplated, I don't see that as reflecting a culture of stewardship. When we look at this block, it's has historic buildings all along it. And I think sometimes Mr. Davis and his staff, on occasion, will argue the fact that you shouldn't be knocking teeth out of a street of historic buildings. As you noted up front, Mr. Sievert, it should be something that's done as a very last resort, and I don't think it's being considered by some folks over here as a last resort. I think it's probably being considered as a first resort prematurely, and that concerns me greatly. When we start poking holes in the streetscape, I obviously know this property, and it's not an attractive building right now. And there are many buildings around our downtown that at certain points in their histories have not been attractive, and they have ended up in the right hands and been invested in, and they've ended up being real assets to the community. And I think the city should model a culture of stewardship. And I think you have a really significant risk here of being left holding the bag, and we have seen it happen many times. We see, well, we're only asking you to approve this step. But then when you approve this step, you can find yourself kind of getting backed into a corner over time. And, or maybe not you folks, but the planning commission ends up getting backed into a corner. And this is really the only option that's available to us. And I just don't know that the city should be the entity that's placed in that position. So I would really caution you about acquiring this property, and I absolutely think that you should do more due diligence before you acquire the property. This whole thing about emergency legislation, which is also a pattern with this administration. I mean, yeah, the guy who owns it now wants to offload it. I'm sure he does, but there are a lot of other stakeholders that, have, including the public, that really need to be considered here. And just because that guy wants to get it off of his hands, I want to go by his timeline. And CIC meeting might have to be rescheduled, so be it. But do some due diligence, see what is actually going to be involved with this property before you end up taking it on. So I just think, in light of what has just happened on West Main Street in the last few years, I think the city really needs to put a great deal of energy into demonstrating that it can model a culture of stewardship. Because it's got a black eye on that front right now in this region. So I would really caution you about putting the city in a position where, it's finding itself behind a backhoe. Thank you.
Bradley Barringer, Crestwood Drive. I'm also a member of the Troy Historic Preservation Alliance. And I can't piggyback much onto what Mr. Southerly just said, but I will add this. Mr. Davis mentioned that this will have to go before the Planning and Zoning Commission, or Planning Commission. Unfortunately, we all know the track record of our Planning Commission when it comes to fast-tracking these demolitions. And we just fought a 4-year battle to save one of our most historic buildings in this community. Don't let yourselves be painted into a corner because the due diligence wasn't done. Grass lots are not an end use. They are not a reuse plan. That was proven in the courts with the IOOS situation. Are you going to let yourselves be painted into that corner again? Let's hope not. Now, Mr. Schilling, you mentioned some restrictions a little bit ago, right? What restrictions would you be talking about, if I may ask?
Well, I think that, number one, I think we have to have a plan in place.
When you say plan, what do you mean plan?
I think we have to have some idea of what we want to do with the building, have some sort of a plan in place. I mean, the first question I have is, can it be rehabbed and at what price?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Davis says, well, we can't get inside to inspect the property. I've never bought a property in my life where I've been unable to get inside the building to do an inspection before I buy the property. So that, you know, that to me is, I have a real problem with that. I know at one time there was some renters in there. I went by the building today. I looked inside, walked all the way around it. To the best of my knowledge, there's nobody in that building right now. So that we can, I know sometimes you can't get in when there's renters inside, but I think that, matter of fact, there was a notice on the door saying they had to be out by the 27th of October.
Which is today.
And so they had to vacate. So it looked like there's nobody in that building right now. And I would think that the first thing we could do before we decide to buy this building is do a walkthrough and make sure that we know exactly what we're getting into. And then, like I say, have a plan in place. You know, let's look at how much is, you know, if we have to get it, if we got some problem with the foundation, we got some of these other problems that I would classify as minor. But like I say, the foundation is always a big deal. And, you know, what is it going to cost to get some of these things fixed if we do want to rehab it? And then hold on a minute, I got to get my notes here. So, and if we determine that we can't rehab the building, you know, it's way too expensive. You know, what are the plan? What type of plans in place? In other words, that our MKS case study from many years ago said we have two priorities for the downtown. Number one, we have to continue to add residential space, and we have to continue to add business space. And so, again, the idea of seed and straw is ridiculous. You know,
you're looking for a reuse plan.
I want a use plan. I want to know, okay, you know, as Mr. Davis said, you know, can we take this thing and you know, put a business offices in the downstairs, and if we're going to build a building, maybe 2 or 3 would be 3 stories tall, and then we have residential living space above that, or you know, those types of things. I think we need some type of plan like that in place.
Well, if I may say, Mr. Schilling, I think from what I'm hearing, if I was on that dais in one of you guys' shoes, my intention would be to agree. My inclination would be to agree with Mrs. Westphal. We should not even be in the business of purchasing this building if we don't know the end costs. We're approving $125,000 just to purchase it. We don't know what the end costs are going to be to rehab it. So why not let it go on the open market?
Well, that's what I'm saying, though, is that, you know, we can get some estimates on what it would cost to rehab.
I would think that's
then we
go
have
to
a
the
better
open
idea.
market. In that instance.
So,
and, you know, I just don't think we should be tying up city money in something that we don't have an end number on. And I'm inclined to agree with Mrs. Westphal on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Behringer. Anybody else? Mr. Hendrickson?
I feel compelled to say something. Steve Hendrickson, 975 Dickerson. I think the idea that we have to do something quickly is kind of silly, because the owner is in a hurry to dump it. This is the same guy who has ignored all of our requests to do repairs and so on. So we're trying to accommodate this guy? Why in God's green earth has he not made the repairs that the city has asked him to do? So he's a smart businessman. It's a lot smarter to say, I'm not doing anything. I'm going to keep my money in my pocket. This thing has got the feeling about once you buy it, it's a black hole for money. Nobody in this room knows how big that hole is. It could be $50,000. It could be $6 million. We're talking about, oh, Jesus, cracks in the foundations. What could that mean? I don't know. Nobody else knows either. There's a whole bunch of other issues that we're aware of just by looking on the outside. So it seems to me we ought to get some facts together, including get this idea of, oh, we have to hurry up to accommodate the owner. He has not, in my opinion, earned that right. If he had been doing all the repairs that he was supposed to be doing, keep the building in good shape, maybe then, yes, we'll accommodate him. But to this point, he hasn't earned that right. $125,000, is it a fair price? I don't know. Don't know, don't care. That's gonna be minor compared to once you own it, what are you gonna do with it? There's a couple of bad things that can happen. One, it's gonna cost you a fortune to rehab it. Or the worst case is you're gonna spend a lot of money and you're gonna have basically a hole in the ground or something that's paved or green or whatever. So you're gonna say, oh, okay, well, we're gonna spend $300,000 for a piece of grass. We all have responsibilities to the stockholders, to the taxpayers in Troy, and try to explain that to them. If you can explain to them how you would spend what might be $300,000 and wind up with nothing, just an empty piece of property, you must be better politicians than I've seen so far. Just be careful, take your time. This is real money, and we don't have enough facts going forward to make an informed decision. You can make a quick decision, but that's not an informed decision. I think I beg you all, let's hold off, get the data together. If need be, find out how much it's going to cost to rehab this place. I mean, there's plenty of contractors around. All you got to do is ask them to give us an estimate on what it's going to cost to rehab it. Then you'll know. Then you can make a decision that makes some sense, rather than saying, oh, we got this golden opportunity. It's not a golden opportunity. It's a brown opportunity, perhaps. So, anyway, please be careful.
Thank you, Mr. Hendrickson. Anybody else? Just a second. Sorry, Mr. Ma'am, my eyes are so bad in the back. I can't. Is that Madison? I can't see who's in the back. No. Okay. Any comment? Okay. Mr. Davis.
Yeah, most of the transactions that we do, you put the property under contract, and then you have a time period to do your due diligence. And I think we can't really do that without putting it under contract. As far as getting inside with contractors, usually you built that in. And Grant can correct me if I'm wrong, or Todd speak on it as you represent some real estate items, but that's usually what happens. You put it under contract, you do your due diligence, and then you make a determination whether you want to move forward with the property or not. So I think that's what could be done in this case as well. You're worried about what's it going to be on the inside. We've not been inside. Well, usually that's how we do things, at least with the industrial properties and some of the commercial properties, where it's under contract, you have a due diligence period, and then you determine whether or not you want to move forward, because at that point you do have some control of the property because of that contract.
This isn't a commercial property right now, though, is it? It's residential, right?
It's in the B3 Central Business District. It's a commercial district.
Right, but right now it's got renters in it, and there's no business in it, correct?
There's no.
Yes, correct.
And we have plenty of spaces for businesses. We don't have enough residential, in my opinion.
Here's my take on where things are. I don't know, Mr. Kerber might remember Wilmot Long. Do you remember Wilmot Long, Ms. Knight?
I do.
Wilmot Long owned a parcel of property at 712 West Main Street in Troy, Ohio. It was condemned by the city of Troy. It was to be demolished. It was absolutely, everybody would have stood up and said there's nothing that can happen to that building. I purchased that building with my father. For 25 years, that building served as a residential real estate company right next to Tim Hortons, where it would have been torn down if there wasn't stewardship, as Mr. Southerly commented, or leadership. I personally was amiss when we read the thing about the green space. I don't believe anybody believes that that's the best use for that, unless it's going to be part of a larger project. Maybe there's somebody that wants to redevelop that whole corner. There could be different things like that, but for right now, I don't know that demolition is even a viable, I guess it's a possibility, but I don't believe from being on the CIC, as long as I've been on it since 2020 or whenever I joined the Finance Committee, that the CIC would see that as what we would want to do. I don't think that that's the purpose of that. I do take a little bit of distinguishing remarks to what Mr. Hendrickson said, in the aspect that if you're dealing with the guy down the street, I agree with you. The problem we have is this has been a nuisance since 2023 with a absentee landlord that could care less what's going to happen to this building, as been demonstrated by his lack of attentiveness. There's a story that he had a tenant who was there who was supposed to be maintaining it, and he was shocked and amazed by the fact that that tenant was not keeping it in repair when he got the first notice. So I don't think that that guy is going to be a guy. I agree, your malfeasance should not be rewarded, but the inverse to this is what's going to have him be cooperative in putting it in the open market. What's going to be, how is he going to participate? Is he going to come here for a closing? Is he going to do it out of state as a closing? Is he going to be involved? Is there a market for it? I mean, I can tell you personally, I know it's been informally for sale for years. So I don't know that just because somebody puts a for sale sign up there that it's going to sell. So in my mind, I think the question is this an opportunity for us to get a hold of a parcel of property that is, if not already, should be condemned, and can we turn it into 712 West Main Street and make it a viable, who's more likely to do that, the CIC or some guy out of California? And that's the question that I think we have. I don't disagree with Mr. Southerly's comments that and Mr. Behringer's that a lot of this is going to be relying upon the CIC and the Park Board, but that's not what's really before us right now. What's before us is the purchase of this property that has been offered to us. We didn't seek it. It was offered to us by a person at a reduced rate. I do have a couple questions that got sent to me by a text that I would like to ask Mr. Davis, if he doesn't mind. Would there be a time limit, or if you know, this really isn't even relevant at this time, but it would be helpful at least to answer this question. If the Park Planning Commission would put this in the green space, is there a time limit as to how long it could be in green space? Do you know I don't know the Planning Commission rules.
That would be up to the Planning Commission if they wish to put a time limit on that as well.
Okay. Is the CIC the only buyer that was approached? Do you know if there's been any other private marketing of the property? I do, as I indicated, I know informally people have said it's for sale, but are you aware of any other private marketing?
I am not.
Okay.
I just have one other comment.
Yes, ma'am.
As somebody who's bought property from the city of Troy that was left in disrepair for a very long period of time, I'm a little hesitant, feeling great about this going into the city's coffers and being responsible. The building we bought was boarded up and allowed to be rained in for years and years and years from the top to the bottom. It's a beautiful building now because a private person bought it and rehabbed it. So that scares me a bit.
Question for Mr. Davis. on the, you said that we could enter into a contract with this gentleman, and then have a time period to do due diligence. And then, so at that point, after we've done our due diligence, who makes the decision to proceed? Would it come back to council again?
It would probably be the CIC, whether or not they wanted to, agree to take the property on, because you're missing that step as well. This would be authorization for the CIC for the city to basically loan the money to the CIC to enter the contract for purchase. So then the CIC would do the due diligence and make a recommendation. However, whatever they choose to do, if it's a rehab, pursue that route. If it is the demolition, which I think people are talking about today, it would go to the planning commission, and then they'd have to go through those hoops. So it would be the CIC making that decision.
So once we turn this over to the CIC, the council's done with it, right?
It could be done with it, yeah. I guess you could put conditions on there.
I mean, because if it goes to the planning commission, then we've lost total control of it.
Yeah, in the report it talks about the property would be owned, managed, and redeveloped by the CIC Board of Directors, so that's where it would stand.
So could we put a condition that it's not torn down as part, I guess that's
You
more...
probably should ask Mr. Kerber that question, I'm guessing.
Is that can the council say, we agree that the CIC should contractually order this, do their due diligence, but should not tear it down without reporting back to council?
Yeah, I mean, you could do a loan agreement or an agreement with the CIC as far as a condition of the funding. I guess I should note, I think somewhat helped the committee out, and Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the contract was set up that the CIC can ratify the contract with the buyer by December 31st? Yeah, we put December 31st of 2025. So there is some time for the city to evaluate, or the CIC and the city, because really, if this purchase would go through, the city and the CIC have both have to be in agreement on how they're going to approach it. And that may require the CIC to have a discussion about this. It might require the city to have a further discussion about it. But if there's you know, some sort of conditions or due diligence, getting estimates, having inspections and things like that, you know, with today's, I guess there's 2 months period that those things can be explored. And if, you know, based on some of that information, that might drive what the conditions would be, if you want to have conditions, or maybe those aren't applicable when you get more information.
Thanks, Grant. Did that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I guess then anybody else? Okay, well, I'll go last. So, Mr. Schilling, what are your thoughts?
Again, I think that this is worth exploring. Like I say, I'm, as I say, I just can't give a carte blanche to the CIC to do whatever they think would be, you know, I think that, you know, we don't want to get into a fight over an old building. We didn't do very well the last time on this thing. And so I think it would be important to put some restrictions on this, or qualifications with the CIC that they work together with us on this to make sure that it reflects not only reality but also the wishes of the people of Troy. And since council is the only dog in this fight that has that represents the city of Troy, the citizens of Troy, I think it's important for us to be a part of this throughout the procedure. I just can't imagine turning this thing over and saying, well, we're done with it. And so I think we need to come up with some plan or restrictions or something that keeps us in this thing, so we have an input and make sure that it's going to, whatever happens, is going to be in the best interest of the citizens of Troy.
Ms. Westphal?
I believe that we have better uses for our money, and I'm not in favor.
Okay. As the third person, I would be in favor of the proceeding with the CIC contract with the following conditions. I do think that there needs to be due diligence secured. I also believe that there should be a clause that it should not be torn down without coming to council prior to going to planning commission. I don't know statutorily if we can do that, but that would be part of our loan agreement with the CIC, and I think that that's something that we should put in there. I concur with Mrs. Westfall. I've actually been in those buildings that she has rehabilitated. I've been in the building that I participated in rehabilitating, and I do believe that maybe not every building can be rehabilitated, but with due diligence, a lot of them possibly can. And I think that that needs to be a last resort with regards to this. I do think if it comes back as a, again, as we talked about, maybe a redevelopment on a bigger project, like when we did the parking lot at the police station, that, I'm not saying we need that there, but that would be more of a reason for where we'd be where we're at right now. But from what I've seen, like Mr. Schilling, I walked around the building. I appreciated Mr. Davis's time today, Mr. Titterington's time today, all the members of council and the people that are here today. It's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like we have a 2-1 process going forward for Monday night, with the understanding that the contract would have specific language that it would not go into effect without due diligence, which would include securing estimates, securing the structural integrity of the building, those types of issues, and whether it's worth rehabbing, and with the understanding that if it is the CIC's intention after performing due diligence that it is not a salvageable building, that they come back to council before they go to planning commission. Mr. Kerber, you have a quizzitive look. Is that something we cannot perform?
No, it's, I'm just imagining the phone call from Mrs. Knight in the morning after the meeting, so I just wanted to clean up a few things. Just to be clear, as proposed in the recommended action, you're not proposing that legislation be in place for the next council meeting, is that correct?
I think we could agree that it's not an emergency legislation. This particular piece of legislation does not qualify as an emergency.
Well, okay. We may have a different opinion, because I think it has to go to CIC before the due diligence kicks in.
Well, the CIC is not going to sign the contract, or not going to approve the contract unless it knows that it has funding from the city.
I understand. So the steps that I'm envisioning are we approve the contract with the condition that they perform due diligence. If their due diligence says that anything other than rehabilitation has to occur to this building, that comes back to the city, or to the city council.
So the action is you're asking the CIC to do the due diligence and then report back to the city?
Well, I think that's the only way we can get the due diligence performed.
Okay.
Or
I'm not questioning you, I'm just clarifying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is that comfortable with you, Jeff?
I think it needs, as I say, I think it has to come back to the city council.
If they're going to tear down.
I want to know what they're going to do. They should be under the due diligence. They should look at it and say, okay, these are the possibilities for this piece of property, A, B, C, and bring that back to us.
I'm fair with that.
Okay. So that's, as I say, it's our responsibility to taxpayer money. We've got to look at it as we got to protect that. We got to protect the residents of Troy, and make sure that we follow the what the consensus is on this thing. But I think what we're saying is right. Yeah, I think we can enter in the contract, do the due diligence, but it's got to come back to the council before it goes to the planning commission.
Irrespective of tear down or whatever.
Whatever happens, it's got to come back to us.
And a good deal is only a good deal if we think it's a good deal.
Right.
Okay. So I think the language, Grant, for you then for the legislation is that the council approves the CIC contract, well, Ms. Westfall might have a secondary opinion that she wishes to write, but it's, the majority opinion is that we agreed to do the contract with the understanding that, prior to the December 31st deadline, due diligence will occur by the CIC, and that report will come back to City Council as to what the costs of rehabilitation are and if that's a viable alternative for the city.
I think we need to clarify something. I think, Mr. Kerber, didn't you say that we had to enter a contract with this gentleman by December 31st? And then once we enter the contract, then we do the due diligence. So the key here is we have to first enter an agreement to purchase the property, and then we do the due diligence, and then we still have the ability to back out at any point in time during the due diligence process if we find out that, like Mr. Harris said, that we're stepping into a
No,
mud hole.
that is not how the contract is set up presently. Right now, the contract is set up between the CIC and the owner, and it is contingent upon the CIC approving that contract by December 31st. We would have to go back to the buyer and ask the owner. We would have to go back to the owner. We could either say, in order for the CIC to ratify this contract, you're gonna have to let us in to do the inspections.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Do the due
And
diligence.
there's no problem doing that, but you're just saying that prior to City Council approving the funding of that, you want to learn the results of the inspection. Is that my understanding?
Yeah.
We want to know, I want to know what our options are before before this deal closes. I'd like to know what our options are. Because again, we don't want to get involved in a $2 million deal. We think we're getting for $125,000.
Well, if we structure it that way, you'll have all the options will be on the table because the inspections will have been in place. And really, our options at that point in time is yes or no, but you'll have more information.
Okay.
So my fear is that we'll get all this done, it's gonna come in thousands and thousands, $600,000 to repair it, we have to tear it down. Then,
Don't we say we don't want to do the contract? The contract will be contingent, we'll have an out for the contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
once it's in the CIC's hands,
Well, from what I understand is council's not willing to commit to funding this purchase until it has the inspections. If the inspections come back, council still has to they have to make a decision whether or not they want to fund the project.
okay,
Good, bad, or indifferent, from
Okay.
whoever's perspective you're saying.
okay.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sold on the deal until we need a lot more information on this thing is what it boils down to.
So,
Is that okay, Sue?
Yeah,
Well,
I understand that we were, a little sidebar here, talking, there wouldn't be any legislation for Monday under this proposal. We would, administratively, as you're suggesting, that we complete this and bring it back to you.
Okay, that sounds like a deal.
Okay, I just wanted to,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So we're going to not deny it, but we're going to table it today, basically, in essence.
Well, not formally tabling it, it'll
That
be
takes
brought
a whole
back
other
to the
action.
committee.
Okay. So it'll be brought back for the committee.
Mhm.
We're just sort of holding it in abeyance.
We don't-
Is everybody holding it in abeyance?
I'm comfortable holding it in abeyance.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Yeah,
Mrs. Westphal?
yeah.
Mrs. Knight, is that are we all under the same page?
Just want to clarify, Mrs. Westfall, are you in agreement with,
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, because we're not purchasing it and then doing everything.
okay.
And you're comfortable that we can do that grant, and Mr. Davis, that we can work with the seller and get the time to accomplish all that? We can certainly ask, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Sounds good.
Anything else before the hour-long finance committee meeting? Are there any other committees, Mrs. Knight?
No, sir.
We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.